Hello there, this is Jenny Walker from DigiGoods and Printables ELA. Welcome to Argumentative Essay Writing, segment number 6, Evidence and Elaboration. Here's what you need to know. Evidence is the information that proves your claim. Evidence belongs in the body paragraphs of your essay. There are different types of evidence that you can use, and we will discuss that in this video. Elaboration is just a fancy word for expanding, discussing, or explaining your evidence. See, it wouldn't be okay just to drop a piece of evidence in your essay. You have to tell your reader what it means or why it's important. That's called elaboration. You can elaborate upon your evidence before and or after you put your evidence. In other words, you can talk about it a little bit before and then give the evidence, or talk about it after, or both. And I will show you exactly what I mean. 6, a natural place to put transitions. Oops, typo. Give me a little grace. I've had COVID here, so I'm not thinking too straight. All right, a natural place to put transitions is before evidence and again before elaboration, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, here is the great news. You've already collected your evidence. Remember, before you wrote your thesis statement, you already gathered this, so you got this part done. Okay. To build your body paragraphs, you'll just need to dig a little deeper into the evidence and make sure that this evidence still works with your essay. What happens often is that people will start writing and then they'll change their direction and they'll realize that maybe I want to use a different reason in my thesis statement. So that evidence that you collected may not still work, but you just need to continually check it and make sure it still supports your claims. And if it does, then we just have to put it in paragraph form. Make sure to watch these 2 great videos on citing evidence, using evidence, and also citing that evidence. Okay, transitions. These are those words that are phrases or just single words that bridge one idea into the next. Your job as a writer is to make your writing as simple and clear as possible. You must create bridges for your readers to cross. These bridges are called transitions. They allow your reader to hop to new ideas without getting lost or confused. Reading can be difficult, and if you don't give your audience transitions, they don't know where you're going and they get lost. They have to think harder about what you're saying. But if you give your reader a proper transition, it primes their brain to accept the information that comes next. So here are examples of some transitions that people use in argumentative essays. You might say, according to, and then you name the person, or according to the article or passage, or consider this. If you say something like this, your reader's brain knows that you're getting ready to give them a piece of information that supports what you said. There's a whole bunch more transitions, and we'll get into those later. Okay. Oftentimes, people who are just learning to write don't know where to put transitions, and I'm going to make that easy for you. A great place for a transition is just before you give your evidence, like this. And again, before you give your elaboration is another great place. All right, more about that later. Here are some examples of evidence with transitions. Okay, here's an expert quote, and here's a statistic. Remember we discussed these types of evidence earlier in the essay? Look at the transition, which is highlighted in green, and the evidence is yellow. According to Russell Cambridge, professor at University of California, schools that committed to providing more nutritious lunches found that not only did grades and test scores improve, but also behavioral problems decreased dramatically. So this is a quote from an expert because it's a college professor that deals with this, who is an authority on this matter. This quote is from a valid source because this person is an expert in his field. He has obviously earned a degree and he even teaches on this subject. So that makes him a really good expert from which to draw evidence. Here's another. According to the National Center of Education for Statistics, within 1 year after the implementation of uniforms, fights and muggings at many schools decreased by 50%, while sexual offenses were reduced by 74%. So this is a valid piece of evidence because it's a statistic from a valid source, and it is a fact that is represented by a number. Remember, we said that numbers, statistics, really lend a lot of significance to a topic, and people really take notice of them. They show how important they are. Okay, the good news is that you just have to paste your evidence that you already gathered. You've already done this work. You will have to reword it and freshen it up, but here's some places for you just to put all of your evidence in this outline so that you can then build the rest of your paragraph around that evidence by discussing it or elaborating on it. Again, you can't simply drop evidence into a paragraph and be done with it. That wouldn't be a very convincing argument. Instead, you'll need to discuss, explain, and expand upon your evidence. This is elaboration. Elaboration makes your writing rich, convincing, and easy to read. You can elaborate before and after, like we said earlier. And the next slide is going to show you exactly how to elaborate. You didn't think I'd leave you hanging, did you? I like to make this pretty easy so that you don't have to guess about what to write about. So when you are thinking about your evidence and how to elaborate on it, here are some questions that can help you do that. What is the significance of the evidence presented? What is meant by it? Oftentimes, when you give information that is or evidence, it's not real clear what it means, so you might have to break it down into simpler words and tell your reader what is meant by it. A good rule of thumb when writing is to write, I don't want to be rude. How do I say this? Write to imagine that your reader doesn't understand much and takes a lot. You have to explain a lot to them. It's not because your reader is dumb, but it is because your reader also has the task of reading and comprehending. So there's a lot going on when you read. It's a lot harder than just listening. So you have to really kind of, I don't like to say this word, but you kind of have to dumb it down, and that makes your writing more clear. You can't assume that people know or understand what you're talking about. So make it real simple. What does the evidence prove? How do the subtopics, the things about your evidence that are related, how do they relate? And what theme can be found? Now, these are not the only questions that you might ask yourself when elaborating. You might think of plenty of other things that you can include in this paragraph that lends meaning and explanation to your topic, but this is a starting point. Here are some examples. Notice that the elaboration is highlighted in red, and it's before and after the evidence. Listen to how this reads. The most impressionable teens can be led to make bad decisions involving drugs, sex, and even crime. According to WebMD, here's the evidence. Teenagers who are more likely to succumb to peer pressure often feel isolated from peers, lack direction in their lives, are uncertain about their place in a peer group, and have low self-esteem. This is why it is vital for teens to choose their friends wisely and never be afraid to let a bad relationship go. Okay, so here's the evidence in the middle. I discussed it a little before and after. Notice this elaboration explains what is meant by the evidence. Read it again. The most impressionable teens can be led to make bad decisions involving drugs, sex, and even crime. And then after, I notice that this elaboration explains why it's important. It says this is vital for teens who choose their friends wisely and never be afraid to let a bad relationship go. This is elaboration, simply discussing, explaining, and expanding upon your evidence. It's not too difficult. Okay, so in the workshop, now that you've done all of the hard work, here's some space for you to start putting it together. You're going to create your body paragraphs. This slide, you don't have to use it. It is only necessary if you have a hard time figuring out where to put the pieces of your paragraph. If you don't need this slide, you can feel free to skip it and go straight to this slide where you just start writing it in paragraph form. And right here, excuse me, is a guide. Topic, sentence, evidence, elaboration, transitions, in no particular order except for the topic sentence should go first. Okay, so that's paragraph 1, body paragraph 1. Of course, it will be your second paragraph because you have your introductory paragraph first. And then you can just repeat this with body paragraph 2. Again, you can skip straight to the slide. If you don't need to break it down into these pieces, just skip here. And then body paragraph 3. And boom, you're done. You have your body paragraphs done. That wasn't too hard at all, was it? Just make sure that you read over them and add words, rearrange words, mold it, make it look nice, make it sound good, make it flow. And that concludes this section. I'll see you in the next section where we learn to put together a counterclaim paragraph. Teachers, be sure to follow me on Teachers Pay Teachers to get alerts for freebies, sales, and 50% off alerts for new products. Join us on Facebook where we discuss all things digital. And the links are in the comment section. See you next time.